Hi, Erin. Welcome to the Sacred Remembering podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Sarah Poet. I always feel like I have to say your name in full to give it justice. Sarah Poet.
Thank you. I feel like I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Thank you for being here. And I'm really just honored and excited for the listeners to receive and experience your transmission, your energetic transmission, and your wisdom. Like
Mm,
the depth of wisdom that you hold. So welcome, Erin Fisher.
Thank you. I
Yes.
feel like I've been waiting for a long time too. I mean, we were talking before, and I feel like I could just talk to you for hours. I'm in your brain and you're in mine. I feel like we have such similar paths of trajectory of where we go.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so true. It's so true. Which is going to be great for the listeners. And I want to say, I think that you and I say this with humility. Like I think we're ahead of our time a little bit in terms of
Mm,
um, some of the things we want to talk about with women
mhm,
and the depths of where we want to go. And so I would invite everyone listening to like listen with yes your brain and also with your body and like your essence and your knowing, because there's bound to be some topics of this conversation that are new, I think, and in the way that you and I are looking at depletion. You're specifically looking at it in a specific way, but we're both talking about
mhm,
this depletion energetic to regenerative energetic, and how we as women move from just this like depletion, which we'll talk more about, into more thriving life. And you're really an expert in that transmission, I feel, living it. But let me read your bio for everyone here. Um, so beautiful. Erin Fisher is here to usher women back into their vibrant, organic, feminine current. She blends her vast knowledge of a woman's hormonal endocrine system and combines this with mystical, unseen quantum energetics within the woman's field. She believes women's healing, vitality, and radiance can be accessed by clearing and restoring both the physical channels of a woman's feminine body, as well as the energetic channels throughout her own personal and collective field. Her own personal journey of healing, Erin's own personal journey of healing, has ignited her path for over 2 decades of study, contemplation, and integration of just how unique a woman's physical and soul body actually is. It brings Erin so much joy to be a wayshower for women to land in their inner harmony, magnetism, and magnificence. So you're not just talking about women feeling good. Like you're talking
mhm,
about this feminine current, magnetism, their
mhm,
essence. Um, can we start with the feminine current?
mhm. Yeah, there's so much I could say about it, and I I like that you just said in the beginning, to just offer an invitation for your listeners to expand their perspective, because that's really where I think where we are right now in this world is really all of us expanding our vision and our perspective to see something entirely new, and it can feel painful and it can feel joyful at times.
Yeah.
So the feminine current is that it is a reference point and an access point for women to essentially feel all these things that we feel in the outer world. So it's like that jolt from caffeine, it's the orgasm, it's the sex, it is the six-figure business, it is all the things that we feel that we desire that allow us to feel magnetic and juicy and all of that. The feminine current is that access point. So it's that bridge between the inner and the outer. And so for many of us, of course, it has been forgotten, this feminine current. It's something that we all know the story that has been taken from us, religion and state, and there's so much history behind that, and we don't really need to go into that. But this current that is forgotten. But when a woman really remembers it and realizes that it's an access point and really turns more inward naturally to this feminine current and realizing that this is an access point to get what she desires, that it opens up an entire channel in the body, because that is also what the feminine current is. It is an unseen channel. And so
Mm.
for women, it starts with their physical body, so the feminine current for women is really sort of, I like to think of it as a entry point is in the physical body, because as women we are so multidimensional, because we can give birth, because we have hips and breasts, because of all the channels in our bodies, our emotional arc, our large emotional arc, that the physical body has been so separate. Our feminine physical body has been so separate from us for way too long. And so when women really start to become a little bit more in tune with that, they're really accessing this feminine current. And so that feminine current after the physical part, then that's where it gets deeper, and these channels are open for us to access parts of us that really bring us deeper into the divine, but really actually bring us deeper into our dominion and our capacity to pull in and magnetize everything that we want. So it's also part of the feminine consciousness. So not this sort of like, stolen consciousness where women sort of reside for the most part, but it's this very activated place of consciousness. And once we realize this feminine current in this consciousness, we have a lot. We have stability, we have nourishment, we have provision, and this is all inner provision, inner stability, inner nourishment, inner integrity, inner juiciness, inner sexuality, all of that. So when that is accessed, we become beyond.
Mm.
Become beyond the physical, and it's eternal. And that's the biggest thing, I think, is it becomes eternal and never taken away from us. And I think that that's one of the biggest things for women, is to walk in this world feeling like they don't have to, right? You talk about this so much, Sarah. We don't have to fight for it. It's just a current that is living within us at all times, flowing. And so there's a lot to it. But really, what I really work with is really teaching women that it starts with the physical aspects of us as women.
I love that.
So
Yeah, because I told you all that Erin was a visionary. And so now, we hear this about the feminine current and like, okay, everybody wants it, everybody wants it. And it sounds like this thing that's like, I'm just tuning into like the orientation that we usually attune to is like, well, how do I get it? Like,
right,
how do I go after it? What do I do? And
right,
that's kind of the point. Like
right.
that's the thing, is that we've been living in this culture that tells us to go after things and be worthy of it and hustle. And
Mhm.
that's what leads to depletion. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean the depletion part. So it's like the depletion part is something that this hustle, this I need to get it, like you said, I even want it. And I chuckled because it's this thing where we're like, okay, what is the feminine current? I want it, and then once I have it, I'm never letting it go. And I'm just gonna
Yeah.
insert here right now is, and you know how I feel about this, and I know that you feel the same. Women obsessed with manifesting through orgasm. It's that same thing where it's like we're like, okay, we found the thing, and then I'm never going
Yeah.
to let go of it. And really, that's just having women stand at the gate of so much more. And
Yeah.
and s- and so the depletion part of it is this internal, this inverted system that's been put on us for so long, for us to really understand that the access point in the feminine current is doesn't need to be reached by depletion at all. It doesn't mean that life is going to be perfect. And it doesn't also mean, and I know you agree with this one too, open up and receive, and you will receive all of the money that you want, and the conscious man will come knocking on your door, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not just about open up and receive, because that really ends up leaving women at some point into some sort of collapse and depletion too. But it's really women taking, like I always say, an amazing amount of sacred responsibility being a woman,
Mm,
because we are the creators, because we can give birth
mm,
to a human if we choose. And so with this sacred responsibility, there does come this aspect of, and this is really like sensitive and triggering for a lot of women, like this aspect of, like, it's not amount of doing the hard work, but it does take this responsibility, it does take work, it does take discipline, it does take
mm.
devotion for
Devotion.
for us to turn away from all of these things that are outsourcing, all of the things. The orgasm is going to get me the thing, the caffeine is going to bring me through the day, that money, that I
The
see so many
masculine, yeah.
yeah, the inverted masculine. I mean, I see so many women running like six-figure businesses, and I can just see in them with no judgment, but I'm like, do they have any idea where that feminine current is daily? Because it takes a bit of discipline and, yes, like devotion, to turn away from that outsourcing and go inward, to recognize this feminine current and really harmonize and calibrate with it.
Hmm.
Because what that is us really calibrating with this earth. So us
Hmm.
being able to calibrate with this earth as women is really important. And again, this doesn't mean that you need to live on 50 acres of land and practice a bunch of other cultures' wisdom to understand what it means to be in reciprocity with the earth. For women, this means really understanding that we are a direct reflection of this earth, because we have this feminine blueprint that is also really connected with our inner seasons, our cycle, our menstrual cycle, which goes beyond if we're bleeding, beyond if we're in that fertility stage. But this is a feminine current that is in a cyclical rhythm inside of us. And this reflects the earth. And it is our sacred responsibility to attune to this at all times, always.
Mm.
So we are not in depletion, so that we recognize when something is glittery and amazing on the outside, like, oh, okay, just teach me how to run the six-figure business and I will deplete
Mm.
myself to no
Mm.
ends, and if I get it. And okay, teach me about the polarity teachings to get the conscious man, or, again, the orgasm thing, like, but then there's no reverence to understanding this internal feminine blueprint and this current. So it is an energetic thing, a current for women to understand, but it's also very simple, because essentially this is when we feel our best, is when we're deeply attuned with this feminine current, when we're able to recognize her ebb and flow, when we're able to get really comfortable with the really dark, shitty, this does not feel good place in life, inside of our grief, inside of our sadness, inside of scarcity, all of that. And then also being able to feel the ecstasy inside of us. So being able
Mhm.
to really embody and get really comfortable with that is being in reciprocity with this earth. So
Mm.
being in that. So
Mm.
being in reflection as that, as a woman, is really regenerative. It will give us the most vitality that we desire, deeply. It will deeply do this. And it also opens up channels in our body. And I could go
Mm.
deeper into that,
Mm.
but um, yeah, I'll stop there for now.
Oh my gosh, it's all so rich. So it's like, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but it's like it's so easy and it's so fucking hard at the same time. Like that's how I experience
Yeah.
this, what you're talking about, because to feel the feminine current is so blissful and so wonderful. And in order to feel that, I have to lay down layers and layers and layers of fear and conditioning and patriarchy and
Mhm.
the things in my head that tell me I have to keep moving, or I have to like find energy when I don't feel I
Mhm.
have energy, those kinds of things. And even recently, because what you're talking about and what I'm talking about in Heartland has so many parallels. I'm realizing as you're talking here. And I was sharing before we hit record that I recently had to go through another like initiation in launching
Mhm.
Heartland that felt like external depletion.
Mhm.
And but the feminine current within me was like, I know replenishment. So the
Mhm.
external
Mhm.
depletion is not truth.
Right.
And my current is truth. And then creating from that current and
Mhm.
like creating from the inside out,
Mhm.
rather than outside in, like you
Mhm.
were saying. But I think I wanted to name that because like we're just so fucking accustomed to trying,
Yeah.
like trying to feel a certain way, or trying to find the feminine, or trying to find the
Right.
manifestation, or
Right.
trying
Trying
to
to find the
find the
feminine.
orgasm. Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Like this like seeking. And
Mhm.
yeah, so it's not that. it's not
Yeah.
it's not any of that, the hype in order to get there,
Yeah.
which we just culturally habitually do so much. um
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and I
yeah.
think that there's a bit of uncertainty and unknowing and some fear and scarcity. I mean, and that can go along with like the masculine template inside of us, but we're kind of scared a little bit to turn away from these sort of this outward false truth,
Yeah,
because we don't know where else to go
what else
because
is there,
we're
right?
we're
Right.
so accustomed. It's such a paradox because we don't know where else to go, but then as women, where we go internally gives us beyond what we can imagine. And I say
Yeah.
as women because as men, men need to turn inward as well, but they're hormonally built to be outward. There's
Mm,
even women that are in this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's applicable of women that are go into to fight or flight, to stress.
mhm,
There's actually two different ways that men and women go into stress. And men go into fight or flight. They go out, something is attacking the tribe, they go out, they fight. Women do tend and befriend, actually, which is they go inward and they pull the tribe close and they use their resources to go inward. So biochemically we are, and that's not just a concept, that's like a hormonal, we actually produce a little bit of oxytocin when we go into stress. Women do.
mm,
It's kind of like birth is a stressful process. Stress is everything from being in traffic to giving birth. It's a wide arc. So there is a little bit of stress that happens internally when we go into tend and befriend, as a woman, when we recognize stress. And but we've been in this fight or flight system, this imprint for so long that we actually just need to learn how to reorientate ourselves when we see a false truth in front of our face, when we know
mhm,
internally so much that is not what I need, that is not going to work for me, this is depleting me, but then we keep overriding that and keep
mhm,
doing the same thing. We need to internally rewire back to that tend and befriend, back to this
mm,
inward place, because in there is where the feminine current lives, and then there
mm,
is where the nourishing lives, and then there is where the wisdom of the womb and the opening of the heart, and all of creation lives. And it's very important for women not only to see the value, but to trust themselves, to listen inwardly to what their body is saying. And that's how I got into a lot of this work, is so long ago in my 20s. Even before that, maybe it was like I was in college and 18 years old, and I had an eating disorder, and I lost my period for 5 years, lost my cycle due to overexercising, under eating. My body was telling me something for 5 years.
Yeah.
And I was way too wired, way too scared, and possibly way too even young to even
Mm,
understand that wisdom. But that was how I got into all of this work. Was
mhm,
I became frozen for about 5 years. I literally was frozen in this
mm,
deep fight or flight imprint for so long. And over 2 decades or more, as I've unraveled all of that, it's turned into a trust with this current, the trust that we know false when we see false,
mm,
that
mm,
we know. And so that inner wisdom and the turning in for women can feel like death. And it is sometimes a death process, this
mhm,
rebirth and this death, because we're allowing face this fake imprint of society, and the false imprint that men have on them, that of course is reflected onto us. All of this falsity, there's a little bit of death for us to
mhm,
rebirth internally.
mhm,
So
mhm, mhm.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. There are two things that are on my mind, so I'll just throw them both out there and you can like pick a direction. Um, I think I don't know that perfectionism is the word, but like, the way women have been depleted for so long, energetically, resources taken, that kind of orientation, that the yeah, just this like have to get it right, have to. And I
Mhm.
recently caught myself in another like cycle of this. A friend actually noticed it and reflected it back, and I was so grateful, because I was kind of like in my head and in a spiritual orientation of like trying to get it right. And
Mhm.
then what I noticed was, the reasons that I was unhappy were the reasons like where I was ignoring my body, like what my
Mhm.
body was telling me it wanted. When it came to my attention that I was in this sort of like perfection, like spiritual perfection orientation,
Mhm. Mhm.
which was coming from like depletion or wanting to get it right, or this old stuff. I mean, we just have layers and layers and layers of it. um, then what brought me back was like going into the portal of the body and being
Mhm.
like, what does it want? What does it,
Mhm.
what does it love? And so perfection. And then yeah, I also want to go back. Let's go back toward the body and talking about the cycles,
Mhm.
as you started to talk about earlier.
Yeah. So, yeah, as I said, I lost my cycle for 5 years. So I was around that really important time of sort of pre-fertility of, what was I, 18, 19, 20,
Mm,
around that time, a little bit before. Um, and I consider that my feminine break. It broke me
mm,
off of my inner feminine. At the time when that was occurring, I was in college, and it was the first time I had been surrounded by a bunch of women that actually cared more about their outward appearance than their sort of inner knowing. I
mhm,
grew up in
mhm,
Vermont, and I felt very confident for the most part, and I think that's really why that occurred. And that feminine break of me, again, as we were just discussing, turning more outward really made it where my body shut down on myself. It shut down on myself for me not to receive this current, this flow, the warmth, the nourishing, all of it. So the body for a woman and her cycles are so important. This doesn't mean that women need to be obsessed about knowing about her menstrual cycle. It means that it is imperative for women to understand that we have a blueprint, a cyclical blueprint within us that is an eternal flow, that's an
Mhm.
internal flow, just like the seasons. It is so important for us to understand this, because this allows us not to be in a state of confusion when society tells us so many things about our body and our cycle. Just shut it down, right? Put it in the corner and just shut it
Mhm.
down. And so that really just births women to be very confused and very disassociated with their emotions, right? So
Mhm.
it's like
Mhm.
the anger, the grief, the sexuality, the joy, it's like we're confused
Mhm.
about that when we've been told to put it in a box. So
Right.
for women to just be given this information. So when I work with women, I just give them, most women don't have any idea about their cycle, or to understand that they have four seasons and that there's four directions, and that it's really important to understand that the arc of how we feel after we bleed is very different than how we feel before we bleed. And it is such a big aha moment for women, because it gives them permission to say, oh, like it's okay for me to feel the depths of my emotions before I bleed. It's okay for me to understand the opening that I have while I bleed or after I bleed. It gives women the emotional intelligence, really. It gives them a
Mhm.
huge doorway of emotional intelligence. Um, but also uh, being able to understand that, through the lens of the menstrual cycle. I mean, I've done a lot of study and work specifically around that, so I use that as a doorway, because then it activates women's ability to rest when they need to rest, which is so important, and then to activate when they need to activate, which really allows women to understand their masculine, their feminine, their Shiva, their Shakti, their yin and their yang, so that they can understand energy more, so that they understand and recognize when an imprint is being imposed on them. They
Mhm.
understand, because they get like, wait a minute, that is not how I internally work. And
Mm.
that's not how I want to flow. And that doesn't mean that we need to be perfect, right? We're not in a red tent, 28 days out of the month. It doesn't mean that we don't live in this modern day world. It just means
Mhm.
that being able to understand and take care of your feminine body, and to understand your cycles before you bleed, young women, while we're bleeding, in the bleeding years of fertility, and after. I mean, a lot of women that either like comment on posts I have or something, say, well, I'm not bleeding anymore, it doesn't matter. The feminine
Mm.
current never ends. She never
Mhm.
ends. She was
Mhm.
with you before you were born, and she's with you through your fertility years, and she's with you after. So this ebb and flow goes all the way through. And so it's really imperative for women to understand this, so that when they approach, I'm going to be 46. I actually had to count that. I thought I was going to be 47. I'm at that age where I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to be 46. I'm going to be 46. And because I've been following my cycle and following my ebbs and flows and understanding my energy and my emotions, and it's never perfect, yes, I
Mhm.
will sometimes maybe drink some caffeine when I'm bleeding, and I'm not supposed to, it's
Mhm.
putting air
Mhm.
quotes around that. But because now I'm in this stage in my life that I'm able to access deeper layers of wisdom, I feel, because I'm
Mhm.
allowing myself to relax when I need to relax, to rest when I need to rest. And it's been very hard for me at
Mm,
times. It's very hard for us to women to give ourselves the permission to do that, to really give ourselves that permission. But I'm really seeing that I have a deeper, I could say, correct imprint of
mm,
me being the feminine in my body now, because I've been practicing this for so long, that inherently when I want to rest, it feels really good. I don't have conflict, in inner conflict with myself that
mhm,
says, like, how dare you sit down and rest? Or what are you doing? You know, all this inner conflict that we have as women, that
mhm,
when we really want to rest, that it's like we've been so wound up for so many years, decades. We had kids, and then after the kids, like, we had to jump back into our career or
mhm,
whatever it is, that the imprint, the correct, frequency, we could say, of allowing your body when it gets the hit to rest, or when it gets the hit to not rest, to activate,
mhm,
we learn how to listen to that.
mhm,
And because of that, because I've done that, again, I'm not perfect, but because I've done that, I have an easier flow with life for the most part. I have an easier time with it. It does not mean that stuff doesn't affect me. It does not mean that I don't have, you know, resistance. It means that I have somewhere to go all the time, is this
mm,
because of this understanding of my body. And so that's why I think it's really important, um when women are learning all about, there's a lot of this in the new age spiritual community. Women are learning so much about the different dimensions and the guides and the field and all of that. We need our understanding of our
mhm,
body to ground us out. We
mhm,
really need that to anchor us in,
mhm,
because I call bullshit if you are an energy worker, but you are not taking care of your body and your temple and have devotion to that first, like,
100%.
fully.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing if you are a woman that's running a six-figure business, but you don't have practices and awareness and take care of your body in a way that the feminine body needs to be taken care of, because there's specifics hormonally. There's some specific things,
Mhm.
especially if you're not doing that. I call bullshit on that as well. I just
Oh,
do.
could we
So
please stop talking about like women and six-figure business, but like emulating the patriarchal hustle? Like, like if you could see me right now, like if you're just listening, I'm like grasping my head because this is like one of the
What?
biggest like issues, I think.
It's so
And
transparent
it
at this point. It's just
is,
like, "We see
it
you,
is.
sister, we see you."
Yeah, like stop running this false masculine
Yeah,
current. And right. So to be in integrity with the feminine current
yeah,
in business, in life, in relationships, in child
right.
rearing, in what we eat, like in all the ways,
Yeah,
and putting that first again,
yeah,
as women, and like choosing that, declaring that, allowing that to be.
yeah, and it'll
Yeah.
take some discipline with some women in the beginning,
Right.
and holding that discipline with sacred responsibility, because you are the feminine, and
Mm,
dropping the complaining. Dropping that, and that is really stepping into queenship and
mm,
priestesshood, is dropping that and having the sacred responsibility of, this is my body, and I am going to take care of her. I'm going to get
mhm,
to know her.
mhm,
And that it does take discipline. And if you, unless you have a child that is really young, that's a baby, I really question if you're a woman that does not give yourself moments in the morning, or whenever you can get to it. I'm not saying that every woman has, I don't have kids. I do have longer amounts of time in the morning to devote to my practice. But
mhm,
if you're not giving yourself that time, and it doesn't need to look spiritual and all these things that women get intimidated, you're not giving yourself time to calibrate with your body every day,
mhm,
then I like really encourage you to bring some discipline in that, and to really look at the discipline. I mean, this is a whole other conversation, as your inner masculine, and that it's beautiful,
Mhm.
and to really start to calibrate that way, because then what we're doing is we're just, complaining, and then we're riding the tails of all these or outsourcing things, right? We're
Mhm.
just like,
Mhm.
well, I have that to do and that to do. And that's true. Again, we're modern day women, but really bringing discipline will give the structure to a woman to really actually feel her devotion, and to feel her femininity, because it's like, I think we're so scared to actually feel what we feel on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis, just
Yeah.
on a energetic vibration level. It doesn't mean that we need to figure it out. Doesn't mean that, like, we sit and we figure out, we're like, "God, I feel sad." It doesn't mean that you have to understand and fix that sadness right
Mhm.
away. It means just have the discipline to just sit
Mhm.
with that, because right beyond that is a doorway into so much more. And that's just been my experience of, I went through a deep place of pain, and some real inner child aloneness recently. And Sarah, you were with me in a lot of this, and um, I opened myself as much as I could to that aloneness, and that pain, and really was had the capacity to do that, because I had been training myself, so to speak, to sit with it and have awareness with it. So,
Yeah.
and what it brought me was more capacity to receive the lushness of everything, the masculine, the divine, the beauty outside,
Mhm.
so really, again, that's just like a whole other conversation of like devotion, but having discipline is cool. It's like, it's a good thing.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Yeah.
and you don't need to
Yeah.
be rigid with it. It's just maybe have a different perspective on it,
Mhm.
and really tending to our body, and really tending to the temple, because she's got a lot going on that
Yeah,
can give
a
you a
lot.
lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, layers and layers of yeah, that programming. And I like your example of the things coming up about the inner child, and like a pain point, and then being able to go deeper with it and deeper with it. And um, I want to give one more like a concrete example, because I think we're talking about a lot of things, and then it's like, let's give some examples too, which you
Yeah.
just did. But
You do that always, and
um
it's so great. You have that gift. It's wonderful.
well, I pay close attention to the energetics and all of the ways, that like I don't get it right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I went through this really in the past year, like in 2021, with food and the body, and like some digestive problems that were always there. And so I
Mm.
expected life to kind of like always be that way, sort of thing.
Mhm.
And it was causing my feminine body, my feminine self, a lot of like distress, like discomfort. And then I woke up to this because it had just kind of always been there, these like trauma imprints from
Mhm.
childhood and from like early adulthood, losing a daughter. And um, so I started to just like question, like, wait, why do I assume it has to be this way? Like, why do
Mhm.
I assume, whether this is like psychosomatic or energetic or like whatever this is, why am I assuming that this is like as good as it gets?
Mm.
And there
Mhm.
was some discipline needed for sure, because in Heartland, I talk about consumption. And like so often we want to go out and get
Right.
another thing or eat another thing or consume another thing,
Mm.
which is a trauma and fear imprint. But yeah, I was looking at like how I was doing that with some worry of about depletion, and like
Mm-hmm.
clear those with discipline and devotion. And then I started to feel that healthy feminine current in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't work anymore to, to be disciplined. It was like there was this opening, and then it flipped into, how can I support this yummy feeling? How can I
Mm-hmm.
support this feminine current? Like, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
this feels so good. I want it to like only strengthen, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, and switching, it had to do with like rebalancing some hormonal stuff, but I was doing that with diet and, yeah. And then the feminine current started to open, and there was more vitality and more replenishment and lushness and, greater
Mm-hmm.
comfort in the body.
Yeah, which opens up so much. I mean, and that's the thing with the body, especially women's physical, is that sometimes it's a tweak, especially with women because our hormones inform so much, especially as, you know, you reach the point of 30 and on, our hormones really start to tweak every year. So it affects our mood, our energy, our digestion. So sometimes the smallest tweak of the body, like the real physical, real stuff, can open up that, like you said,
Mm,
you asked yourself, like, does it need to be this hard, or what you said, it can open up that, it's like a bridge to that consciousness part where you just you
mhm.
let go, you like unhook
Yeah.
from that thing, because your nervous system, in your digestive system, your nervous system somehow relaxed. So maybe that you even got the hit to be like, oh, now that I'm a little bit relaxed, you got the hit to
Mhm.
even ask yourself, do I need to hold on to this? And that is the same place of just like how women's system are just so much in stress, so much in fight or
Mhm.
flights. Their
Mhm.
nervous system is so jacked up, and that's a huge entry point that I learned for myself in my journey. I have had adrenal fatigue, I've had so much, but I see it in probably every woman that I work with. And that's why I like to go to the physical body first, is like, well, let's see what's hijacking your nervous system
Mhm.
first. Because again, we live in this modern day world. Like,
Mhm.
there's so many allies for women, specific to women, to get their system out of the fight or flight, get their nervous system aligned, so that when that happens, they can actually take like a metaphorical and a literal breath and
Mhm.
start to see, like, they can step back from the stuff that's hooking them in, whatever it is, the relationship stuff, the job stuff, or whatever, and pivot
Mhm.
and say, okay, like, I don't need this anymore in my life. I don't
Mhm.
need this relationship. I don't need
Yes.
to feel this way. But it really does, there is a bridge between, the energetic and the physical, for sure,
Mhm.
in getting women's nervous system out of um, fight or flight is huge for
Mhm.
women. It is huge hormonally,
Yeah.
everything. It allows
In all
women's
the ways.
moods to amplify, their capacity to, I mean, every woman is an oracle, I believe. It
Mhm.
is just regurgitating and purging the fight or flight so that we can open and then receive all that wants to come through. And sometimes it's a bigger journey depending on how jacked up you've been for that many years. So,
Yeah, right, right. And then, yeah, layers and layers. And that's what I was, wanting to move toward next, with like the next topic or the next question is, the physical and the energetic, because you are working with women, on this physical level, the body level, the cycles, the hormones. But then you're also working like in the quantum, in the energetic, with the blueprint. So I don't know what the question is right there, but I would love to hear you talk more about how you're weaving those, because I think it's so profound. I would really love for women to understand it more,
mhm,
because I think, I don't know if I've never seen a woman doing that like you're doing that,
mhm,
with the understanding that you're carrying. It's like some, we either like we often have either or, like
Right.
Yeah, like the embodiment and the hormonal stuff and like, or the super spiritual, but this is, I mean, it's so there's so much union like implied
Yeah.
in the energetics of what you're
Mhm.
doing. I just like realized that just
I
now
saw you
for the
just
first time.
realize that.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, embodied breath. It's like spirit and matter, here they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about that and yeah, the specifically for a woman. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I will first just say that, um, to combine the 2, it took my own journey to
Yeah.
embody it, to really understand it. A big part of my life, has been sitting with plant medicine, and I only mention this lightly, sometimes because, it's with great privilege, but it's really informed my energetic, capacity and understanding, I would say. So for about 11 years, I've been sitting with this specific, ethnogenic plant medicine, so it really healed a lot for me internally, but it really allowed for me to understand the different realms and to understand the different dimensions, and I really recently really started to integrate this into my work, because I also um, started to really see from my own personal experience with this, but the you know, sitting with plant medicines is really working in the quantum field, because it's limitless possibilities and there is no time. So the quantum field, there's so much information out there. So I was also, it fell into my lap perfectly. There are these specific modalities that I learned, that I weave into being deeply informed, having sat with plant medicine for 11 years, for women to understand, that the imprints of what they have experienced, whether it's an eating disorder or a breakup or a divorce or some sort of trauma, is held in the body
Mhm,
somewhere. It
mhm,
is going to be imprinted inside of the body, and our capacity as women to actually go beyond the body and into the realms and into the quantum field is very natural for us, and I call this the multidimensional woman,
mm,
because of everything that we were talking about, the multidimensional woman, because we already have these cycles in us, and because we go through these ebbs and flows of emotions, and because we go through the dark and the light, that's already multidimensional. So it's very easy for us to be these, you could say, these medicine women, to be able to shift into that realm. So this realm is where we witness ourselves in an experience. So in a breakup where you're actually able to witness that experience, through a specific modality that I had been taught and that I really actually have appreciated when it was taught with me. But I also weave in my own capacity to teach women to envision themselves in that experience that caused them that trauma. So again, it could be a divorce. And stepping outside of that, once those emotions are felt, once they're talked out, and there's very specifics of the way that it's done, but women actually being able to witness themselves outside of that experience. So it's almost like you're walking outside of the room, because we talk so much about trauma, like, okay, we've had these traumatic experience, but then we just hang out in the room forever. We
mm,
just like keep talking about the trauma, but
mhm, mhm,
the multidimensional woman steps outside into this field
mm,
of limitless possibility, steps into the realms, understand that spirit's guiding her, understand that there's God consciousness, understands that, feels that in her bones so easily because of this feminine current. But even if you haven't practiced this feminine current, it's so easy for women to go there. And so then she uses all of that to witness herself there in that experience of divorce as an example. And when she does that, she immediately has separated from that.
Mhm.
She has
Mhm.
separated from that. And she's able to witness herself and look at herself outside. And when that happens, that's when we shift our feminine consciousness from the
Mhm.
shackles of our trauma, from the shackles of these experiences. And then we're able to imprint this, then we're able to actually then move through life as this multidimensional woman, to be
Mhm.
able to go behind the veil of these deep traumatic experiences, but also daily. I think a woman walks daily with her multidimensional self. She walks daily with spirit, with having this capacity, this large capacity to be able to look at the stuff that isn't hers. It is not her choice. Even shitty days, we
Mhm.
have this capacity where we can wake up, we can feel shitty, we start complaining, and this isn't feel good bypassing, this isn't like every day I wake up positive. It's not that. It is choosing where we're going to allow ourselves to get leaked into a spiral, and then it hijacks us.
Mhm.
And I know, Sarah, you talk about a lot of this too, but that's the multidimensional woman, is having discernment, having discipline, having devotion, of being able to witness yourself as that woman in the situation, whether it's the traumatic situation, one experience, or daily,
Mhm.
being able to witness it and calling back in these elements of yourself, which is love and truth and support and provision, all of that you contain as a multidimensional woman. And that's in the quantum field. So that's essentially what's happening when we're drinking plant medicine or having these outer body experiences, is we're accessing these different aspects of ourselves outside of the traumatic experience, outside of the imprint, outside, and we're able to experience that, and that's the beauty of plant medicine and ethnogenic plants, is it brings us there really quickly, but we don't need that. We don't need that all the time. We can do that just with our consciousness, because we all have the access point to see ourselves not just as our higher selves, but to actually feel it in our system, in our bones, in the pathways, in the portals of ourselves as a woman, to know that we have the capacity to wield through the shit, wield to that traumatic experience, and step outside where there's limitless capacity. So
Mhm.
that is the multidimensional woman,
Mhm.
and she learns how to do that. She learns how to go beyond the veil. She learns how to unhook from all of this. So when I work with women, that maybe have had endometriosis, for instance, and we go back into, we understand, oh, like really that occurred because her feminine current was hijacked, and then her body turned in on herself to have endometriosis. And then what really happened? Oh, what really happened was maybe there was this time experience, this time stamp, this time where this is held. And for women, I mean, it's maybe a longer
Mhm.
conversation, but that's really held in the womb. And so you go in there, and that is clearing the channels. It
Mhm.
is allowing women's feminine consciousness not to be the woman that has endometriosis or pain or
Mhm.
fatigue or whatever it is, but you are that multidimensional woman witnessing the Sarah, witnessing the Erin with that, and
Mhm.
then you gracefully leave her there, and then you walk as this multidimensional woman through your life and through what you desire. So
Mhm. Mhm. So powerful, so huge. Thank you for explaining that in that way. And, whether or not people have experience with the quantum or with plant medicine,
Mhm.
what you just described is amazing. And like, for example, people could come to you for a session or for a series of sessions and experience this, which is just so profound, because we're always operating inside of assumptions of the way things need to be, like what you're
Mhm.
calling these imprints.
Yeah.
Like, this imprint of like, well, you live in a patriarchy, well, women have to fight for
Mm-hmm.
their rights in a patriarchy. And that's what I'm like all the time. I'm like, wait, question that. Why like look at it
Right.
metacognitively, like what,
Mm-hmm.
why are we orienting in that way? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. And then being like, what would I like to imprint, or have as my regenerative truth? Um, yes, so much yes. So much yes to that.
Yeah, and you know, you don't need to have access to plant medicine at all.
Mm-mm,
You
no.
don't need to know what the quantum field is. It is literally available for all of us
Yeah,
to have that. All it is a perspective shift. And I
right.
think more than anything, it's available to us now very much so because we
Yeah.
are in this is what the great change is this is a different perspective shift. And I mean, hands up if you've
Mm-hmm.
gone through hell in the last, like,
Yeah.
it's 2 years,
Yeah.
and but it's all here because we're lifting ourselves. I see us,
Mm-hmm.
we're stepping outside of that room. We're
Mm-hmm.
stepping
Mm-hmm.
outside of that room, and it's in the perspective shift can be really intense for
Mm-hmm.
people, but there really isn't much like no, it's very immediate, and I feel like it's very immediate for women more so, and I could be wrong, but because I
Yeah.
know a lot of men that live in that sort of quantum realm, but it's not even these names, plant medicine, quantum realm, whatever. It's just this internal awareness that is remembered. We already
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We already know. It's just having that awareness and that remembering brought to us. And
Right.
again, it takes some discipline,
Right. Right.
and it also takes some different ways to keep that stable all the time, to keep that activated.
Yeah.
That's the path of the hero's gamos, I believe, is to
Mm-hmm.
to be able to know that masculine, feminine, that inner union is part of our capacity as multidimensional women
Mm.
because we're being fed by that and we're a part of that at all
Mm.
times. So
Stabilizing. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not relying again on the external, on a man. And I just want to say too, like another one of those experiential kind of testimonial things. For me, it's like when I'm inside of this like quote unquote system that we live in, and I know that what I'm experiencing is no longer true,
Mhm.
but it's like a you know causal effect, like it's an effect of the system itself. Then for me it's like, I know this isn't true,
Mhm.
show me the other way, and that's like my entryway
Yeah.
into we're creating new realities here.
Mhm.
We're creating new possibilities as women, and you and I both, again, talking about depletion to replenishment and depletion to regeneration. That's what it was for me. And I mean, it's like, it's in my words on this podcast from 2021, I was like, no more depletion,
Yeah.
show me the way. And that was like the prayer, like, what do I need to do? And so every time there was a habitual depletion, or
Right.
like an energy exchange that was
Yeah.
old, with, especially with men, that resulted in depletion, it was like, oh, okay, there's another energetic example, show me the way. and
Yeah. Mhm.
and we're creating the new way. I mean,
Yeah.
this is how the planet will ascend, like will change. um our
Mhm.
capacity and our consciousness is not by playing by the old rules.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Right.
not in that game, like the answers are
Mhm.
not in that game. And so yeah, what you are describing is most certainly um a or the pathway into um, not only seeing what's possible and becoming what's possible, but also
Mhm.
stabilizing it,
Yeah.
and then like it really becomes the new way.
Yeah, and that stabilizing has a lot to do with um being in a devotional path, and all that really means is really trusting and knowing that more than the inverted bullshit.
Right.
I mean, that's
Right.
all it
Right.
is, really. I mean, you can go deep in devotion, what that is, and we
Mm-hmm.
all have our path of that, but it's really staying devoted and in that inner knowing. And the more that you do that and watching your mind
Mm-hmm.
just be like, well, this sounds like bullshit, or this seems like bullshit, or wait, my
Mm-hmm.
physical reality hasn't changed yet, so this must be bullshit, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's like, no, you just stick with it and you
Just
stay
hold it.
with it,
Mm-hmm.
you hold with it, and holding with that grows our capacity as women. Like that,
Mm-hmm.
there's that masculine energetic. It's like it vibrates our capacity to expand. So I mean, that's really the way that I personally work with it, is I stay devoted with it. I am very weary of like affirmations just because
Mm-hmm.
say it, and Abraham Hicks stuff. Like, no, like when there's an actual energetic stability that
Yeah.
you're feeling and that you're devoted to, no matter what's going on, like, because we'll deal with
Mm-hmm.
stuff. When you
Mm-hmm.
keep
Mm-hmm.
sticking with that, I believe that that's where it's sort of like the cellular shift
Yeah.
happens. And then that's when the physical reality, that's when your life starts to change.
Yeah.
You know, it is
Mm-hmm.
all of that. So, and that's really like the quantum realm. But yeah,
Right.
and it doesn't need to be hard. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's like the biggest thing for us women is like we feel like we just say fuck it, it's just going to be too hard anyway, so I'll just choose the thing that's easy, and then we end
Mm.
up being depleted. So it's just like there is
That,
this
yeah.
matter of
Mm-hmm.
being in tune with your body and staying devoted to your inner knowing and allowing yourself to have the space to hear the hits that come up. um and really it takes some training. Like the multidimensional woman, is it does take
Mm-hmm.
some rewiring, of course.
Mm-hmm.
How could it
Mm-hmm.
not? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
how could it not? We've been so wired to deplete. We've been wired to deplete. So it really just takes some rewiring and sticking on that path.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Devotionally, which the feminine knows. We
Yes,
know how to
exactly.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Erin. We're going to start
Oh,
to wrap up. We made it through the whole thing without the dogs barking.
I know, my dog is right here. Like, he's about to bark. I feel it.
It's like it's almost time.
Yeah.
Um, so your Instagram handle is well and wise woman, and I just that's so clear now, the
Mhm.
wisdom and the wellness that you're carrying. So tell us where we can find you and what you've got going on, what your invitations are for listeners, because you've just blown their minds. So
Aw. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Well and Wise Woman. You can find me on Facebook, Erin Fisher. I do a lot more writing on there. But social media is working for me for now, sometimes, you know. We had a discussion about that. But you can find me there. You can message me at either one of those places. You can also go to my website, wellandwisewoman.com. You can email me there. Um, and I explained really how I work with women one-on-one, so women can reach out. A lot of women come to me, with their sort of physical stuff, like they've lost their period, or it's some hormonal, or they've been fatigued or something, and then we just go deeper. And or it can really just be an energetic sort of um, situation and
Mm,
feeling that they want to work with. So I do a lot of combo sessions. So I'll work with women doing the physical, and I'll give them lots of allies like nutrients, herbs, a protocol to really help your nervous system and your
mm,
physical body get out of whatever maybe it'll be in, if that's you. And then we'll go deeper, and then we'll do the quantum modalities, and weave in a lot of different modalities that I've just had in my practice. So it's sort of a combo. Sometimes the modalities require a 3 session. It just depends. So you can reach out, email me or message me if you're curious on that. And uh, what's coming down, basically down the pipes of creativity, is really doing a longer program, not too long, but teaching women about the multidimensional woman. So really going deeper
Mhm.
into everything we've really talked about, and teaching women how to access, going behind the veil, how to access points in their body, really giving them applicable at home, like what is your daily devotion practice, what is your body, what are you doing with your body, how, what could you do with your meditation. And these aren't huge things, like you don't need your entire day to do them.
Mhm.
But really giving women the path to do that, to learn how to be a multidimensional woman, which we already are. So it's more of them a remembering
Mhm.
to feel more vitality and to be able to wield through the shit of life, basically.
Yeah.
So watch out for that. And yeah, maybe some other things. We'll see.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for
So
having me,
amazing.
Sarah.
Yeah, to hear the whole arc of what you're just like downloading and intuiting is just so wonderful. So thank you for coming and sharing.
Oh, thanks for having me, Sarah.
Mhm. Yeah, you're welcome.